All right, welcome to the podcast. Way to the World podcast is what we brilliantly named this. Today we're here with Ish Manwani, Ethan Crouch, and Joey Bishop, myself, Corey Mendez. We're going to be basically taking a look at four different propositions in California for the 2020 general election. We feel that we were most passionate about the propositions that are going to affect us as new adults coming into the world for 2020. So the first one that we're going to be looking at today is Proposition 16, which directly, I'll read it right now. Basically, on the ballot says, Proposition 16 allows diversity as a factor in public employment, education, and contradicting decisions. And it is a legislative constitutional amendment. So with this, the definition of the First Amendment, I'll open it up to Ethan and Ish, who are going to be representing the left, the more Democratic side, and Joey and myself are going to be part of more right Republican side. So I'll give it to you.
All right. So I first want to say that this bill is repealing the earlier bill that was placed in 1996, which was the Proposition 209, which basically entails that race, gender, sexual orientation, nationality will not take a part in schooling, colleges, and jobs. In my opinion, this bill has to do with the systemic oppression that people have faced for 200 or 300 years. When we look at it, minority groups have faced a lot of discrimination when it comes to the United States, and those people haven't had those reparations that the U.S. Because of the actions of the U.S. And when we put this bill into place, it is almost a further step into those reparations that we help with minorities, especially American Indians and the African American community.
Yeah, and as you were talking, Ish, this discrimination in this time and age, been quite a relevant topic. And in my opinion, I think this is a great step forward as the people to making a step towards, you know, eliminating these nations and unifying the country as a whole and allowing such person to have jobs and opportunities as everyone else should. So yeah.
Yeah, I really do think those are some great points. However, just going into propositions as a whole, I do believe that propositions have more of an impact on our lives than just voting for the presidents in general. So I think we do need to take a deeper look into these propositions because these are the laws and things that are just going to affect our lives on more of a personal level. So when we look at Proposition 16, it's really affecting the way that we're going to be getting into colleges and the way that we're going to be getting jobs. And I think it's having an influence on something that was originally created in 1996 that shouldn't be changed. I mean, we originally created this in 1996, so why go back to that old way? I mean, we're just coming out of that um, moment of, different races and different discriminatory actions in history. So we created this bill to prevent that from happening. Why would we go back to that?
Um,
Just to
go ahead, Corey.
just to touch on something that each first said, kind of piggybacking on Joey. Each you stated earlier that we are taking a step forward in eliminating discrimination and kind of bringing unity together as a country. In my perception of Proposition 209, like you first read, and like it directly, I can read it direct. It says, the state shall not discriminate against or grant preferential treatment to any individual or group on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in the operation of public employment, public education, and public contracting. So in my opinion, I feel like in a way it's taking America a step back, because if you look at it in a way that how I read it is, this proposition is encouraging employers, colleges, stuff to look at, where this person may come from, like to have that influence their decision, rather than, if I'm an employer, I'm going to evaluate your performance based on your performance. I'm not going to have that influence me because I'm told to. And I think that the government should be involved in preventing discrimination. I think the government should be involved in stopping things that are done in violence and harmful discrimination. But I don't think that the government should be persuading me to decide on things that, quite frankly, I think that it's only causing us to divide even more.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I want to touch a couple of the topics that Corey and Joey went over. So, firstly, as a person who is a minority myself, and looking at history, you can see that a white male has had more privilege in the sense that as the generations go down, you have a better opportunity of going to college. Firstly, because that your parents have gone to college. Most white parents, most white males have gone to college. Now, when they have children, that they have that college experience, the parents have that college experience, which they can hand down to their children. Now, while as me, I even though I've had a great life and I'm really appreciative of this life, I don't have the same background of my parents going to college. They haven't gone to college. So that gives me a little bit of a setback because I don't know how I'm going to apply to college. Where do I need to go for things? What do I need to major in? Like, I don't have that guidance as if a person who is white, whose parents have gone to college, and they can help their children out. So that gives white males or males even specifically a better opportunity at college automatically because they know what they're doing. Otherwise, a minority doesn't really know what they're doing because of their background. Since their background is so complex and they've immigrated, they've been systemically oppressed in America, they haven't had those equal opportunities that was already provided to white people. Now, if to eliminate that, we need to fill that gap in because it's more about equity, not equality. So if we provide that equity towards the minority groups, they have an equal opportunity to applying to colleges and to getting into those colleges. Ethan, do you
Yeah,
have
and
anything to add?
go ahead.
Yeah, so I think you make a great point. I personally am white, so I cannot see your standpoint. I cannot relive your standpoint. So I respect your standpoint. But I must say, myself personally, I think, in my own opinion, it depends on the parents. Like personally, my parents very out of it. They haven't been the most resourceful in terms of guiding me. They have been more guiding me in terms of school, and they've been supporting me in school and allegedly pushing me towards college. But a lot of it, I think, has to do with, as you were talking about, their backgrounds. So maybe it's because their parents weren't so on their backs or whatever it may be. But I think that a very particular issue, and I mean, I'd imagine it is very valid in other cases, but personally, I think there's definitely a portion of actual general people that have that issue, including myself.
The
Go ahead,
only thing
Corey.
I would say, to what you first said, Ish, you kind of discussed like a minority. You kind of like talk about minorities and stuff like, and you kind of separate them and talk about them like in a general sense. And I think like Ethan gives a perfect experience of his own. Like not every single white male is given opportunities. Like it has an advantage automatically. And a quote from, I mean, even so, this is from the Tom Campbell. He's a former dean at the University of UC Berkeley. Said that Berkeley's business school was rated among the best for recruiting minority graduates, and we did it without using race. So we also give no favoritism to children of donors, alums, or politicians. We're strictly merit-based, and that's how it should stay, which I agree with. I don't think that in the minds of an the admissions office, should you be influenced if you're looking at two students, one is overperforming, maybe even by a slight margin, but this other student maybe comes from a different background, like you're describing as the minority of the situation, to be influenced to take this student because this proposition says that you should. And I think that's the problem that we get into is I'm all in favor for equality, and I think everyone should be given the same opportunity, which, statistically can be all over the place, but as stated here by UC Berkeley, among the top schools in recruiting minorities without this proposition in place. So I think that government should not be involved in something like this, where we came out of the civil rights movement with the mindset we never want to be in that place again. I think we can all agree nobody wants to be discriminated against. We shouldn't discriminate against you and not let you into this college because you're this, but we also shouldn't let you into this college because you're this. You should be let into this college because you performed and you did the steps that were needed to take to get into that college. So
Yeah, frankly, I think the general consensus is that we can all agree that everyone has different backgrounds. Everyone's gone through hardships. Not everyone's can go through hardships, and everyone can go through, strengths in their lives. But the solution into getting into college shouldn't be the admissions counselors feeling bad for your background. It shouldn't be a pity. It should be, the solution is in giving everyone the same opportunity to get into college. So instead of the admission counselors being like, oh, your background, you've had a terrible background and you're based on your ethnicity and things like that, we will let you into college. The solution should be giving you the guidance and giving you the steps in order to do the right things to get into college. And then once you apply to college, it should be like, the University of
Okay.
Berkeley,
Okay.
something
Sorry,
like that.
Got it. But okay, so a couple of things right here. First of all, I understand, Corey, that you were saying that like I'm generalizing a little bit, but if you look at it statistically, if you look at most private schools, even still, white males predominantly dominate those colleges. They, in the past, if you look at Stanford in the past, it was predominantly white male. If you look at other schools, now it's switching over to this trend where minorities are trying to compete with the majority population. But if you look at it in the past, it's mostly white males going to college. Now, when we look at it, it's different. But Joey, you were saying that we need an equal opportunity for everyone. I need you to also realize that people don't have it as well off. Minorities tend to be less well off than the majority because of their background. Like let's look at the Black community. The Black community has faced so much oppression that they've been put in these like really impoverished neighborhoods, which is like, let's look at Compton. No, they don't have that much proper education. They're the gangs, everything that's surrounding them. So they
what
don't
I'm saying
Yes, go ahead.
is the solution to that is to create the education, create the schools in those communities, so then they do have the opportunity to do this instead of just accepting their background and then feeling bad for them once they already apply to college. You need to fix the solution at the core.
That's true, but until the solution at the core will take a long time to fix. If it hasn't been fixed for 40 years, it's going to take more time. It's already being fixed, but it's a slow process. And up until in 1996, the bill was appealed, like it was repealed. So that wasn't taken in consideration. And the Compton still exists. It's still a impoverished neighborhood. But until we can get the problem at the root of its core, this still needs to be in play because not everyone has equal opportunity to schooling. And until equal opportunity is provided to people of color, of minority groups, of people who have been oppressed in America, such as American Indians, Native Americans, and Black people, we don't have an equal opportunity of even applying to colleges. Some people don't even have the mindset of going to colleges because of where their living conditions. So until we provide this equal opportunity for everyone, we have to have this supplement equitable environment for people of color or minority groups, females too, so that they can have an equal opportunity of applying to colleges and going to colleges, even jobs in the future. Does that make sense?
Go.
Okay, so here's how I'll kind of disagree with some of the things you said. I think I'm not exactly clear on how you say. I think if you want to go a little bit more on the fact that the Black community, minorities, do not have as equal of an opportunity of applying to college as white male privileged privileged males do, because if you're going to specifically say they don't have equal opportunity of applying to college, nowhere in any college's rules, admission rules, applications does it prevent minorities from applying to that school? And it does not give any favor to white people, regardless of anything. Because if you look at what the 1996 Amendment, Proposition 209, clearly prevents that, it clearly disallows colleges, work environments, employers to discriminate or even consider it a factor of applying to college. So I think I understand in a way what you're coming from, how the proposition is made to encourage colleges, employers of, oh, look at these things because, you know, these colleges, like, rules make it so they make it so that you're not allowed to, but look at these things. But I think it's unfair to say that anybody in America right now has it, that it says anywhere that you don't have this same opportunity, that you are not allowed to apply to college like this male is. I think what exactly are you trying to say?
Okay, so let's look at it. We all know about slavery back in the day, that occurred, and then eventually the civil rights movement happened. There was the Jim Crow laws that existed, but up until then, there was sharecropping. Black people did not. Let's look at the American Indians. They were put into reservations, and they didn't have their own land. All this led to poverty because they were slaves first. They didn't inherit any money. They were always poor, and they've had that same trend going on. We look at it statistically, Black people are some of the uh, uh, lowest paid people in America. Now that leads to lesser education because of this wage gap, this poverty level, which this leads to less education. Um, so that lesser education leads new generations to not want to apply to college as much because they've seen the environment they're living in doesn't promote applying to colleges, doesn't promote going to colleges. And when they go to school, they are not as prone to going to college as suppose a white male is who's living, and majority of white males in the United States are better off than the Black community is. So now they have a better chance of going to college because they have a better educational opportunity. So now the educational opportunity provided promotes people to go to college, promotes people to go to these Ivy Leagues, these higher end colleges. Otherwise, minorities are not really have that same promotion. So that leads to this. There is no equality there. Then there is no equal educational system for both the minorities and the rich upper class. And so that leads to when white people apply, there's less minorities applying, even though um, colleges don't like say that minorities can't apply. It's not like that, but it's just that like you will already see this trend that there aren't that many minorities applying as white males are.
So I'm gonna step in a little bit, and I'm gonna add to you, Ish, in just a second. But Corey, I wish I could say that in this time and age, that yes, I agree, and that we have these rules in place, and that everyone is gonna follow them as if these rules apply to everyone. But we are in a non-perfect society where people can get away with quite a bit. I mean, as we saw in our last presidency, um, uh, we had we tried to impeach our president due to some conflicting things and not agree with him, and that we thought were not constitutional. So even though slightly irrelevant, it just shows you the power someone can have, and what they can get away with. And what I mean by this is that we are here to try and make an impact, and this is what this prop is trying to do. And what, coming straight from the source itself, from the background section, it says that the new section is banning the consideration of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or origin or national origin in public employment, public education, and public contracting in California. And I think that has a great meaning, and it has a great idea behind it. I think there have been many companies that have, not been following this. There have been schools, like, even look at our school. I mean, I am not black, I'm not Indian, I'm not any ethnicity. I am white. I'm a white man. But there are a lot of other white people, just
Yeah,
the
absolutely
majority is
right.
white. But one thing that, and it's another proposition of 15, it is proposing getting more funding towards public schools and community colleges. And as a Ventura resident, I think minority groups can have the opportunity to go to college. And there's Ventura, I forget exactly what it's called, but the Ventura Trust, where you get, your 2 years of VC for free. And that allured a lot of people and given them lots of opportunities to get that college education. And I think that it really does matter. The farming community in our day and age, maybe not so much in our community, but you know, they're on the farm from 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. just bending over, following their dads and whatnot. But this opportunity for employment and for education hopefully can give some sort of push towards getting them that opportunity.
Absolutely agree with Ethan there. So one quick question for Corey and Joey.
Mhm.
Okay, this is a rhetorical question. I already know the answer to this, but were
Okay.
blacks allowed to go to college, or American Indians allowed to, or females allowed to go to college in the 1800s?
No, but they are now.
They are now, correct. So there was there was no equality back then.
Right.
Now, I believe that to
Which is
supplement
why
that,
we have that Proposition 209.
exactly, but you have to realize that non-educated this non-existent educational system for the black community, for the American Indians, has led to a now impoverished, more poverty neighborhoods for black communities, because they haven't had the proper education to get better jobs. So that education for this non-existent education for them has led to poverty, which leads to another lack of education. Now that lack of education leads this lesser drive to apply to colleges to get a better education, because of the problems in the impoverished community, such as gang violence, such as drugs, alcohol, all of that. So it leads people to not apply to to colleges. Like if you look at even Foothill, right? Foothill is a prestigious high school in Ventura. Like people,
Mhm.
if you look at the white people, even Indians, the model minority, suppose Asians, want to go to Foothill because it's a better school than Buena or Ventura. Now, as a personal experience, when I ask other people, other minorities such as Black people, Hispanic, so what school would you choose, um, uh, over Ventura, Foothill, or Buena? They say, oh, Ventura, obviously. They're like, oh, Foothill's a nerd school. That same ideology is being fit into these people, that like college isn't for them. They need something else, if that makes sense.
I just want to quickly add it in. Um, I know Joey talked about it a little bit, and I know Rory just talked about it, but the 1996 209, it it was the same thing. It was race, sex, color, and national origin, but it was in public programs. The new section, which is supposedly section 31 of Article 1, states the same things in public employment, public education, and public contracting. So it's not necessarily eliminating anything. I think it's just adding more uh, guidelines.
Well,
Just-
it makes discrimination illegal, so it does eliminate it, because makes discrimination against sex, race, color, ethnicity, national origin illegal. It makes it illegal. It's a constitution amendment, so you do get penalized for doing either of those things when considering hiring employers. And we're talking a lot about school right now, but it's far beyond the education system. It goes into the workforce and government agencies. So here's how I would look at it in the mind of, I'm a business owner. Okay. I'm given two hires. I'm evaluating these two people based on their performance of how I believe they will perform for me and my business. And I think that once the government steps in and tells me how I'm supposed to run my business, how I'm supposed to do this, and I should, because then you start to get in a problem. Like you start to get into an issue where now I have this bias in my head where it is a constitutional amendment that I am encouraged, that I am allowed to take in where you came from and what background, what you were influenced to do, what you were not influenced to do based on where you're from. And I'm supposed to look at that in terms of how you're going to work at my workplace. I create an interview, I create a list of questions and an evaluation on how you will perform the job, not how society will come in and look at my workplace and see, oh, how diverse is his workplace? Because the fact of the matter is, everybody, I believe, in America has every opportunity to make a name for themselves, regardless of where you come from. Yes, you say it has an influence. Black people are from, obviously, historically, they've been discriminated against. Slavery obviously has, put Black people in a historical sense of oppressment. And I think that where we are now, we are one of the most informed civilizations that we've ever been. We had a record number of voters. We had a president receive the most votes in the history of any election. I think that when you sit and say Black people don't want to apply to college, to me, you're saying that because I'm being a Black person who's lives in this gang violence is encouraged not to apply to college. I don't think any education system out there discourages any student to not apply to college. And I think every student is given the opportunity to go out and individually create and work hard to go to college. And I think that when you talk about white privilege, talk about, you generalize it in the sense of, are you talking about like a societal white privilege? Because how I see white privilege is, and I'm asking you the question, what rights are afforded to white males that aren't afforded to Black males?
Before I answer the question, Joe, you want to add anything?
No, frankly, I think Corey hit it right on the head right there. When you're looking at it from a business owner's perspective, you shouldn't have this bias in your head based on something the government tells you. You should base it off of how well you think this employer is going to do your job. So I think he, described it very well right there in describing why we shouldn't vote for Proposition 16, which is why we're here, right? We're deciding if we should vote yes or no on Proposition 16. Should your ethnicity, race have an influence on whether you should get the job? I think it should not be an influence, not guiding you to give them more of an opportunity. It should just be not a factor at all.
So I want to respond just real quickly. Yes, Joey, I think, and knowing you, I think you're a great guy. I think this at least opens up that opportunity to give that person maybe some power. So if there were unequal opportunity in employment, that and let me get this straight. I think I do believe I do agree with you when you're saying to give that view on different races just due to these proposition, which is not at all I'm not trying to make anything of that, but I'm saying you shouldn't solely be focusing on, oh, hold up, this thing I'm in because I don't know, but it's like a guilt trip I think someone was talking about. Instead, I should be more as you're a business owner, you're looking at it as a business owner view. If there were some unequal employment, that person can maybe go file to the court and tell them that this was not fair, and maybe further on, so that person is strained out.
All right,
Corey,
you can carry on.
Yeah, Corey, what was your question again? I kind of forgot about it.
Basically, what I asked is what rights are afforded to white males that aren't afforded to Black males?
Okay, so it's not. I say in today's Constitution, everyone has equal rights, but the fact that our Constitution was not about equal rights in the beginning to start with and up until 1960, which is pretty recent if you think about it, it's only about 60 years. It's pretty recent in history. There was no equal rights for black males or in the African Americans, or even until for women's, it was up until 1910, I believe, that women didn't have rights, equal rights. That led to not white males have more rights, but they have more privilege in the sense that they were the ones who were leading this country, and they were the ones who always had the power and the better opportunities before everyone else. Now that leads from generation to generation, that privilege leads down. Now slavery stopped, but that led to Jim Crow laws and sharecropping, which did not really solve slavery. It just gave them another opportunity to oppress minorities. So that led to the civil rights movement. Now, after the civil rights movement, yes, black people and white males were considered equal. But if you look at it, slavery caused people to be living in impoverished situations. They don't have that same money that white people have from their generations and from their past that was handed down to them through what's the word? Through wills and through just inheritance. While black people didn't even have that money because of slavery, they own nothing. That leads to them going into impoverished neighborhoods and ghettos in a sense, and living that lifestyle compared to someone who has that inheritance for years and years and years and generations. That's white privilege. That's the idea that you are better off than a minority who hasn't had the same opportunity as you, and that leads down. Once
Right,
that
but
leads down, go on.
here's what I would say. So as a black young black men
Mhm.
today, I don't think are going to, and I don't think should, or trying to word this right. I don't think that personally, if and I'm not. So, but
Yeah,
if I
yeah.
wasn't, I'll speak on it. Like I'm not a white, I'm not a white male. I'm not,
Mhm.
white. I'm Russian. So
Yeah, yeah.
I, a lot of people think I'm Mexican, but I don't think that you can look that a black young teenage man, boy or whatever, is going to sit and blame slavery and say that, oh, I can't go to college because of slavery. Like I
It's
can't
not
go
that
to
they
college because
can't
of
go to
slavery.
college. Okay, let me just ask this. Do you agree with the whole thing that I said about it going down from generation to generation, the white
Yeah,
privilege existing? Did I answer that question?
I do agree with you there, Ish. I think we have had some terrible backgrounds in certain groups
Right.
in the history of
Exactly.
America. That is obvious. We can't forget that slavery did happen. But the solution isn't just accepting the ghettos and just leaving them to exist and
Right.
then trying to solve the solution at the college admission level. The solution should be to eliminate these impoverished
Of
neighborhoods.
course, Joey.
And
Of course.
yeah,
Absolutely. I
so
agree with you.
that's why I don't think the solution is in Proposition 16.
But it's a okay, look. You're absolutely right that that's the problem at core. But like I said, for 60 years, that problem hasn't been fixed. There are still those, there's still Compton, there's still Inglewood that exists even in California. Even California exists as a free state, but those things still exist. Why? Because of the past. Now we need to fix that. I completely agree. We need to fix the problem at core. But until then, we need a temporary solution to help these people get into college, to give them a better opportunity to promote them that you have a better chance. Apply to colleges, be successful, be like these guys. And in the meantime, let's fix that little holes that we have. Let's fix those communities. Let's fix those educational systems in the impoverished neighborhoods. So I believe that Proposition 16 would be a great temporary solution until we fix those gaps. Once we fix the gaps, we're all set. We can have Proposition 209 again, and we can put that in place so that everyone has equal opportunities. Because right now, are we really equal? Isn't there still a wage gap between, let's just look at it statistically, there is a wage gap between and income gap between the black community and the white community. So what do you guys think about that?
So the only thing is, here's my point on Proposition 16, what we're talking about. I think if you pass Proposition 16, you're creating this this dividend. Like you're creating more diversity in the sense that you're now taking away from that this white male who I find it really hard to believe that he's proud that whatever ancestor he had was a slave owner, but you're taking away from the fact that he worked hard for this spot. And I think if you put it in the heads of college admission counselors, you put it in the heads of business employers that no, you should be influenced to, this should influence your decision. I think if you're looking at education, in no way, shape, or form should where you come from influence the decision to be able to get accepted in this place. I think it's solely based off of your merit. You work, America right now. Yes, we didn't. Not everybody had the opportunity, and we all know that nobody in here, I think, would agree that slavery was ever a good thing. I think we all condemn slavery, but I think that it creates a problem. This proposition creates a problem when you start to encourage people to make decisions that are based off of, that are taking away from the purpose of getting into college, because the purpose of getting into college is that you worked hard over the years to be able to move on to a higher level of education. And there are programs such as FAFSA that, they take and they accept, they make it more equal for students of low income to get in. It's not saying like, oh, you're poor, you can't get into college. There are programs out there that accept that diversity and that privilege that some people may have financially over others. But I just think it creates a problem of more diversity, because now you're going to have, white males, white women, you're going to have them saying, I didn't get into college because this college was told that I'm more privileged, and that, yeah, I worked hard, but this person right here came from this. And what if they work both just as hard and you can only take one? I think that,
Of course, Corey, that makes absolute sense. I agree with you. Like it's a good point, but we
Right.
gotta take into consideration that a lot of these people aren't provided the same opportunity in the first place. Suppose, let's look at it this way. Like Ethan said, Foothill is a great school, but 90% of the population is white. It's a lottery school, first of all, but 90% of the population is white. Private schools, some of the best schools in California. Only the richest and elites can attend those schools. Majority of those schools are white people. Now, they have a better educational opportunity at those schools because
Right.
of their privilege in the past.
Ish.
Correct?
well, because it was worked for, it wasn't given to them. Like,
It was worked for, but that same opportunity wasn't given to minorities. If
but
from the beginning those opportunities were given to blacks, given to whites, this problem wouldn't even exist right now. But the same opportunity wasn't given. Yes, they might have worked hard. They might have worked completely hard for those situations, but blacks worked hard too, but they got nothing. They got absolutely
but
nothing.
I think you just speak too generally on terms of black, because there I think that there are many black people, Indian people, Asian people that would tell you like, no, like you can get out of what you're in, and that
Of
the
course,
government
there
doesn't
are
need
some.
to. Right, but you kind of say, you keep going back to Compton, and I think you're talking about in a sense that like that's everywhere. I don't think the majority of America suffer, like I don't, there's just aren't that many, like what you kind of speak about blacks not having this educational opportunity, like it's everywhere in the US. And yes, it exists. I agree that it exists. I agree that there are places where there are other things that are encouraged more than college, more than education, and it's a problem. I agree, but I don't think that this proposition, I think it hurts us more than it benefits us, because it's bigger than
Okay.
just school. It
Okay,
is.
okay. Corey, you're absolutely right. Let me make this understand. So basically, I'm Indian. I would say that I have had a better opportunity since I am the model minority. I am the person who came to America because my parents, not my parents, but a lot of Indians come to America because their parents have had past education. They come to America, they work in really good jobs, so they're automatically successful. Correct? So I'm the model minority. I work, and then my parents put pressure on me to work hard. They're telling me to go to college, go to college, go to college. But that same pressure isn't applied in other communities. That's why they're not considered the model minority.
Exactly. That's why I think we need to put that pressure on these communities, and that is the solution. The solution should not be put on the college admission council.
Yeah, I agree, but that's what I'm saying. This should be put in as a temporary solution until that pressure is put on, because the pressure hasn't been put on for 60 years, like I said before. So what makes us think that, like, how are we going to change that if it hasn't happened for 60 years? What makes you think that it's not going to happen now? Or what makes you think it's going to happen now? So that's what I'm saying. We need to put that pressure on them. But until then, we need a temporary solution to help these kids go to college. Personally, I would say I don't need that much help because, like I said, I'm the model minority. But there are other, and I came to America. I was given this great life, but other kids weren't provided that same life. Ethan, you have
I would
anything
just
to add?
like to say that we're doing a way better job than Donald Trump ever did in that debate. So,
Yeah, facts.
or just, yeah.
So, it's an interesting step because it's an effort to eliminate this eliminate the view of these sexist and race and nationality, and now implementing that, they can look at the university, public schools and UCs and the state schools all can look at your and all that to hopefully help benefit you. And think, like you were saying, Ish, if someone comes from that background and the university system legally now they can look back at your background. They can see that, they can consider based off your background how you get into that college, and if it needs the help, if FAFSA needs to help you, if anything may not be there, as you said, equity is important, right?
Yes.
So let's say there's a minority figure trying to get into any college. They may not have some things. They may not have some privileges. The alumni, they may be the first going to that college. This new proposition just may be able to allow us to look and take a step back and say, they accept, due to this system of equity, they allow you to get in because see your nationality, but your background, where you came from, and help you out to get into that college.
Yep, I think we've made some great points overall. We are getting a little bit long on time now. If you guys want to make some final points,
let me
you're
make
open
one
to
final
that.
point, Joy.
Yeah.
I want to say that I think that the law specifically should be specific on some races that have been oppressed in America before. Personally, I know a lot of Indians, and I know myself, and a lot of Asians too, that have had great opportunities because of our parents and because of the pressure of our parents to apply to college. But it's not the same for every minority. So maybe this specific law should be placed for specific minorities, such as Blacks and American Indians who haven't had the same opportunities, or even in the Latino community. But I think I speak for a lot of Indians when we say that we have been given this opportunity since we are considered the model minority, quote unquote. That's just my final point. And one more thing. I think should be considered a temporary bill until, like Joey was saying, that we build this fair system for everyone, this great educational system that everyone has. Go ahead, Ethan.
Yeah. As I said before, I think that this is a decent effort to eliminate the diversity issue. At the same time, I think it needs to be more specific, and it needs to have ways to incorporate both races and all ethnicities, so that, as Joey and Corey were talking about, to not have this like fine line between, I think it needs to be more encompassing, more all around. Oh man.
Yeah, it's okay. I think we all know that a solution needs to happen. We've all had different backgrounds. A solution needs to happen. We can agree that a solution needs to happen. Some believe that it's through Proposition 16, but personally, I think that the solution is not through Proposition 16, is through something else, and we need to find that.
Yeah, it just to close out, like in a sense, how I see it, and what I think when I think Proposition 16 will hurt us is because I think Proposition 16, and like it states, I'll pull it up. It says that it permits government decision-making policies to consider race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in order to address diversity. But I think that you are legalizing discrimination, and discrimination is seen as something that's, like a bad, and you're discriminating means you are taking it on in a bad way. You're considering these in a bad way. But Proposition 16, it now favors different races because you're discriminating against people who have so-called, who have had this privilege, people who have worked hard and stuff. So I just think it creates more diversity, in my opinion. I think you're now separating races. I think you're now making America believe that, oh, you're just separating races when we should all be combining into one. And yes, we have this background, and I think that it's terrible, but the step forward isn't to create more, to divide us more, in the sense that we need to now focus on race. So
Yeah, I just want to finish up. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, you got it.
I wanted to finish up what I was trying to say.
For sure.
So I think I have moved to say no on this one as well, because I think that there should be something else that should be able to I think we shouldn't be like playing favorites. I think it should be
Right.
there should be more of a way we're looking as everyone in California is treated equally, and instead of allowing 209 proposition to be looked at more, and maybe find a better solution.
This is the Weight of the World podcast, so we must find that solution.
Sure. All right, I'm gonna pause it.
All right. Well, beginning, we mentioned we would be able to cover a few more propositions, but we did get pretty into Proposition 16, which I think was productive, and just by looking at one thing, I think we can say we productively had a conversation about it and didn't interrupt each other, like we saw in the first presidential debate. So, with that being said, Joey Bishop, Ethan Crouch, Ish Manwani, and myself, that was the WOW podcast.
Today is gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you. By now, you should have somehow realized what you gotta do.